Hello. It is our week 4 skill builder. So, this is the week that we are going to talk about all things freestanding. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to pop on. I'm going to get my iPad set up so I can see questions as we go. So, we'll get started with kind of the meat of our live here in just a few minutes. There. Okay. Make sure my volume is off there. All right. So, it is Sunday. It is our freestanding session. So ordinarily when I do the freestandings, I would do a sweatshirt, tote, whatnot. However, all of my things are currently packed up in boxes. So I'm going to talk about them as I've stitched already, but I'm going to stitch on some quilting cotton. So I'm going to go over different materials, different stabilizers, because with freestanding, really the most important thing is understanding the material that you're stitching on and choosing the right stabilizer, making sure the fabric is stabilized properly, just so you know how it's going to behave. So, and there was some years ago, I did a test on quilting cotton with different stabilizers and things to show the difference in how those materials behave when they're stitched on, which of course I can't find that. I probably need to redo that test. But this is our design for this week. I know last week I had kind of floated the idea of throwing some snark in, and everyone seemed to be on board with that. So a little snark this week, but nothing more than like G-rated. So we're good there. No one's going to get offended by this, I hope. This is on a flat weave towel. So for this one, what I do on these guys, I like these towels a lot actually. I do cutaway stabilizer. And then I do a stabilizer called a poly mesh, which is this real thin, fusible stabilizer that you actually fuse to the backside of your material before you get started. This is great for knits, like sweatshirts, t-shirts, things like that. I like it for tote bags, other things, and I use them on towels as well. So what I do typically is I will cut one piece the size of my design, and I will fuse that in place, and then I will cut a second piece, which I'll do that now just to show you. So I'll cut one piece. I cut two pieces, depending on the density of the design. So when I'm doing things like satins and a lot of text, it's going to be a little dense. And when I say density, I mean the number of stitches that are going to be in that design. So you can tell a design is going to be kind of dense by looking at the stitch count. So for this one, it's not a super dense design, but we have some pretty dense areas here. We've got a bunch of satins here. We've got satin columns here in the font. So we want to make sure that we have this stabilized so we don't have puckering on what we're doing. And so it just looks nice and crisp. So that's where the poly mesh comes in. So what I like to do for these flat weave towels, now I don't do this for towels that are like bath towels as much. This one's really wrinkled, but I don't do this the same way for this. I don't fuse anything in the back of this, but I do this for these flat weave towels because they are thinner on the thinner side. I will fuse my first piece down one direction, and there's still a little weave to this. So once I've got this first piece fused down, I will take a second piece and I'll put it perpendicular to the first and then fuse it over again. So I have two layers of this on these thinner. They're not quite flour sack towels. They're a little thicker than that, but maybe like one layer of canvas or linen is probably equivalent layers of this to give you an idea what I'm talking about. So that's how I prep these towels. And I would do the exact same thing when I'm stitching on a tote bag. So, oops, sorry, just bumped the camera there. So tote bag, I do, let me zoom out just a little bit if I can. Oh, it won't let me zoom out anymore. I do the same thing for a tote bag. On the inside, I will do the two layers of poly mesh, and then I've cut away here because again, I've got a lot of stitching in here to deal with. They're pretty wide, they're pretty thick. So I want to make sure that I'm not going to get, and it's a little wrinkled, but because it's been sitting in a tote, but I don't want to get puckering around when I'm stitching on this stuff because no one wants puckers when they're stitching things on materials. So I like to make sure that everything's going to stay nice and crisp. We're going to have the results that we want. So that's why it really starts with the stabilizer we're going to use. So cutaway is going to be your recommended for most things that we're doing freestanding on. just so you know that your fabric is stabilized properly. And I saw a comment. Was it Nancy? Nancy, were you saying hi? Like my comments keep disappearing. Does every week to me. Yes, hi Nancy. There you are. So this is a tote, and I do the same process, same materials for when I'm stitching on sweatshirts. So on the inside of this, it's the same thing. I have my 2 layers of poly mesh. So sweatshirts and t-shirts are made of what's called a knit fabric. It means it has a stretch. It has a direction to that stretch. So when you talk about knit fabrics, you'll hear one-way or two-way stretch, and that just means how many ways that stretches. So a two-way stretch means it's going to stretch in one direction, whether that's horizontal or vertical. And a four-way stretch means it's going to stretch in all directions, so horizontal and vertical. So with this, knowing that the knit fabric, when you're stitching with it, is going to stretch, you want to make sure that it is stabilized properly. So that's why I also use that fusible poly mesh on the back of this with the cutaway. In fact, I think on this design I did 2 layers of cutaway because we have a lot of fill in there. And when you're stitching a fill design, what will happen is that stitch kind of fills itself in because the knit itself is prone to stretching. It will start to kind of push that fabric away from the design. So you want to make sure that you have that stabilized properly with both the poly mesh on that and the cutaway. So keep that in mind when you're doing things like t-shirts, when you're doing things like sweatshirts, is that fabric will stretch, especially in a fill area. It's just the nature of what happens. You're just pushing, you're going back and forth, and you're slowly pushing that fabric out. So we stabilize that so we don't get puckers, we don't get it distorted, and we don't get the stretches that we don't want. Let's see. I'm really getting annoyed. Hi, Nancy. I'm really annoyed my comments aren't popping. I have to go back and double check, so I blame Facebook. Also, I wanted to mention real quick, too, on the back side of this, some people don't like the feeling of the stitches on the back side. It's kind of scratchy. No one likes that. They do sell a product that you can put directly on the back of this. It's fusible as well. I haven't personally used it a lot because it doesn't bother me. But some people are just sensitive to that stuff and have sensory stuff. You can get this product. It's on All Stitch. I can find and link it. But you can put that over, especially for like onesies and things, that lays over this, and it just makes it softer to the touch back here, so you don't have this scratchy stitching against your skin. So that's a product you can use too. What I will say, I'm going to do just plain quilting cotton tonight and put it in a hoop. So some of you following along might have heard of my whole debacle the last couple weeks. My workspace and my husband's workspace is all in our downstairs basement, which is finished. But the bathroom, there was overflow of drainage. The drain lines got all plugged up and it came all into my basement. So that was a debacle, getting all the damaged carpet torn out, some of the damaged like drywall torn out. But they're coming, and then it happened again. So here's my personal drama. It happened again on, oh my gosh, I don't know, Thursday. It started backing up again, but luckily we caught it before it came out of the shower stall and came into the whole basement. So the plumbers came back out, and they're coming back out on Tuesday with a jackhammer to fix the problem for good. But in the meantime, because we're putting new flooring down and everything, I decided this would be a great time to paint because I have nothing else going on. So I'm covered in paint. My clothes are covered in paint. Kind of disaster. But with that said, the reason I tell you all this, well, I'm going to talk too much, but I thought I needed some new wall stuff anyway. So I thought I would do this design and hoop it. And unfortunately, my hoops like this are buried in boxes too. And I didn't realize that until about 5 minutes before I started this, that I couldn't actually get to said hoops to put it in the hoop for you guys. So I'll have it all stitched out, and I'll talk about how I put that together, although I really can't do it on camera. It's been a whole week. It's been a 2-week thing at this point. So hi, Krissa. Hi, Merle. So sorry for rambling on. There's my personal drama with that. I don't have a timeline for the flooring, but when I do, I will have to take kind of a pause on lives until we get that sorted, because they're going to have to not only rip everything up, they have to put like a leveler down because we're going to switch to vinyl flooring instead of carpeting. And it's an old house. There's like probably 2 layers of tiles underneath me under the carpet. So they need to put that down and level it, which will take a few days to dry before they can put flooring down. So we will have a little pause on the lives while that happens. I'll still get the designs to you, so you'll still have them, but we'll have to play kind of catch up on the video part. So I don't think anyone wants me sitting at my dining room table stitching up. That would be terrible for everybody. And I'm likely to make a mess and spill food on myself there. So, but yeah. So anyways, since I am using quilting cotton is thin. It does not stretch, which is a bonus for us, but it's prone to puckering really badly. And it's not even just the stabilizer. It's how you prep the fabric as well. Because this stuff, it's so thin. It's so thin. And any heavy stitches, any heavy fills, things like that are more likely you're going to get puckers. So what I like to do for quilting cotton is I like to put interfacing. This was a little heavier than the poly mesh. The interfacing that I use is it's a woven fusible stabilizer. I'm trying to get it out for you. Here's some. No, that's not it. It is the most commonly one you can find is Pellon Shape Flex 101. I think I got this from like Pixie Fabrics. It's like their version. It's a little thicker, but it's fusible on one side. It's woven this way, so it's about the same thickness as your quilting cotton. And I like to apply that when I'm going to stitch on the quilting cotton because it basically doubles it up and it gives that fabric a little bit of integrity. So we don't have to worry about the puckering and the pooling that happens a lot when you stitch on quilting cotton. So I've already prepped that. Since I'm going to do a hoop design, which I hope I'm not going to offend anyone with language here. I'm going to try and behave myself. What I'm trying to do here is I need to make sure that my interfacing on the back of this and this is bigger than, sorry, I blew the bad word there, is a little bigger than my hoop so that I can wrap everything around so I don't see on the front, bad word, any areas where maybe I've cut that away, right? I'm going to go ahead and stretch everything over minus this stabilizer when I cut this. So obviously I'm going to use a bigger hoop like that size, but this is the finished one on the back side where I've cut everything. I did cut away here, but I want to make sure that that interface and extends beyond that hoop. So it's all one piece and we can wrap it around. As you can see for this one, I've got this, it's quilting cotton. This is an Essex yarn dyed linen, which is kind of, it's not like super thin, but it can be a little thinner than some quilting cottons. But as you can see here, I have all this. I don't have any puckers in any of this. It's not pulled. It's nice and flat and straight, which is what we're going for, is that nice and flat and straight look. So it's nice and crisp for us. So that's what we're going to do tonight, minus putting it in the hoop, which I'll talk about how I do that. I just unfortunately can't show you in real time because I can't access my boxes. All right, so first things first, when I am going to stitch on any material that I'm cutting, whether that's knit, whether that's quilting cotton, canvas, whatnot, I like to make sure that the piece that I'm using is bigger than what the size I'm going to finish. So right here, cut this out, it's way bigger. And that gives me a little bit more room to work with, so I'm not trying to fit. Imagine if you cut this just to the size and you didn't position your hoop just right, and now you're going to be short a piece of, sorry, bad words. You're going to be short a piece where it's not going to wrap nicely for you. So make sure that you've got a lot of space here. I have at least about 2 inches on either side to play with. That way it's all going to fit in my hoop and I don't have to be so precise when I'm centering this. Okay. So I float everything. And I know there are people that are diehard, like hooping things. And if you have a way that works for you, I am not here to change your mind. This is just what works for me. And I need to tighten this up a little bit. Do what works for you. This is just what works for me. There's not necessarily one right answer on what's going to work best, but this is my way of doing it. So do you? But if you want maybe a different way that you want to try, you're not sure, this is what's worked for me. Hey, Kelly, you did make it. How'd your show go today? All right. So I have my cutaway stabilizer here in the hoop. I've got my fabric here ready. What I like to do, and this is kind of an odd size piece. I didn't really trim it up very well. I'm just going to find the center, and I'm doing it really rough here because I have cut this piece much larger than I needed. So I like to find the center. I just like to fold it and then just press it, just finger press it. If you want to be more precise, you can see it. Can you see here where it created that crease on the center? So I know where my center is. You could use masking tape to mark it. You could use some, I have a Choco pen that I've used before too, to mark that. If you need something a little more visual, if you're having a hard time seeing that crease in the fabric, you can use Taylor's chalk. I do not recommend using friction pens anywhere that's going to be visible when the project's done. These are heat erasable pens. They're great for marking areas that are outside where we're going to see. So if you're sewing in seam allowances and embroidery, maybe here at the edge, which not going to be in my finished design here. But these, they're great for erasing. However, they can come back when they're exposed to cold, and the darker colors they can actually bleach the fabric that you're using. So be very careful with these. They're great tools for certain circumstances, but I would not go all crazy marking any visible areas of your project with these pens. So stick with the Choco pen. I use the pink, which I can go up here. It just leaves, if you can tell on camera or not, it leaves a little streak and it comes right off. And any piece that's kind of stuck there, you can get a baby wipe and wipe that off. It'll come out in the washer as well. I have heard some people say that the blue Choco pen, it comes in white, blue, and pink, that the blue Choco pen sometimes doesn't come out as well. So just be mindful of that. Test it on the fabric first before you mark up all of your fabric. So my fabric is ready. My hoop is ready. I've got my center line pressed here. I'm actually going to do a little bit of basting spray on mine, which I know some people are super anti-basting spray, and if you hate it, that's fine. Don't come after me. It works for me. Although my nozzle is getting a little stopped up here. I make sure that I don't spray anywhere near my machines. I just spray far away, and I just put, of course, it's my nozzle. This is I'm actually not spraying this much. It's not coming out because I need to clear off my nozzle. There we go. So you do like 2 or 3 quick spritz. That really wasn't as much spray as you think because it wasn't coming out. I do. And then I kind of just let it air dry for a second. I don't want it to be wet. I just want it to be a little tacky. And once I have it there, I take the material I'm stitching on. I have where I've marked that center. And then I feel for these little bumps on the bottom of my hoop. And I make sure that my center here is on the bottom. And then I come up to the top and I do the same thing, make sure that my center is there, and then press it down. If it's not sticking well or you don't want to use any basting spray, you could use pins on there. I've got Sew Tight magnets, which are great, that I'll use outside of the stitching area to hold those pieces together. But with this, I'm going to be fine just floating it with a little bit of basting spray. I'm not going to have a problem. If I was using tote bags, which if I can sort of kind of hoop this for you, when I hoop, let's pretend. We'll all pretend together, shall we? What I like to do when I hoop sweatshirts, I make sure that when I mark those, where's my sleeve? Oh my gosh, I can't even unfold a sweatshirt today. It has been a whole day. It's been a week. I make sure that I mark those centers clearly. I mark from the center of the collar, and then I mark the center of this kangaroo pocket. And I'm looking to center the design between this area. So this is what I'm looking at, is I want it centered between the center of the collar and the center top of this kangaroo pocket. So when I am centering these, we're gonna pretend I did this already. All right, pretend there's stabilizer in there. We're gonna pretend. All right, so what I would do with this is I would absolutely use some sew type magnets or some pins. And it's gonna be hard for me to see that I'm doing this straight right now since I don't have stabilizer and I'm winging this just to show you an example here. I would do sew tights around, and what I would do is I'm gonna pull the whole sweatshirt out of this. So I'd have my sweatshirt pinned down into the stabilizer, securing it there. And I like to use these little hair clips from Amazon. And I like to take a second once I've got it in my hoop, and I like to clip all these fussy areas like sleeves and things like that out of the way. And I would readjust in my hoop too. I'll do the same thing once I get it in my hoop to the hood, because basically I don't want anything getting sucked under and stitched in the back side of the hoop. So I would add more than just 3, but I would clip that kind of all around. That way it's only stitching. There's nothing on the underside that's catching here, if that makes sense. So again, unfortunately, all my sweatshirts are boxed up somewhere. So we're kind of doing a rough visualization here. And I do the same thing for tote bags when I'm stitching on them. I like to make sure that I have any edges kind of tucked away with these clips. That way nothing's going to get drug under, especially like handles and things, because these will get stuffed under quicker than you think. And then you have your handle stitched down to your tote and nobody is happy. So, all right. And another quick thing too, that when I'm using, and pretend this design was a stitch fail a while ago, so it's kind of a mess. This is water soluble stabilizer on top. What I like to do on fabrics that have a nap to them, which means it's not just a flat weave. So think of like your bath towels, your terry cloth, think of your minky, think of your fleece. I like to put a topper on these, and this is a water soluble topper. So water soluble stabilizer rather, but they come in this like mesh like here that washes out. It also, which is easiest, these are easiest to work with. It also comes in this plasticky kind of version. So they both work just fine, but people will say that they have a hard time with the plasticky one because it tends to want to pull and get sucked under. So you have to be a little more careful with the plasticky one, but it's cheaper and it does work. So it's up to you. They both work just fine. The only thing is with the plasticky one, you can typically pull that away. As soon as you're done, you don't actually have to like wash it out if you don't want to, which is nice. You can just pull it away. With this, it will have to go in the washer, or you'll have to sit there under a sink with hot water, rinsing and rinsing to get it out. So just think about that for the topper you want to use. You don't need this topper typically for things with a flat weave. So when I say flat weave, I mean there's no texture to it like this. So a shirt, a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, a tote, canvas, a flat weave towel. Typically, you don't need this topper on there because the fabric itself is a flat weave and there's nothing for the stitches to get hidden in. So when you have something that has a nap to it or a texture to it, what happens is some of these stitches will get kind of sucked into and lost in the stitching. So you might stitch out a word and the stitches don't look crisp to you. They're kind of being eaten inside this, for lack of a better word, eaten inside this texture. So this is what helps stop that. So that way you have, try and find one on I don't use those towels as much, but I wonder if I have any in here that stitched out that's actually done. Maybe, oh, I do. All right. So for this, for example, and granted this applique, so you can have as much, but you can tell on the side, there's a little bit of stabilizer right there, the water soluble that I pulled away. But this stitching around the edge of this is nice and crisp. It's not being eaten. It's not hidden in the nap of this towel. So if you see that satin outline right there, it's not hiding. It's standing, it stands out so you can see it. So that's why we use that topper on things with the weave or with the texture to it. So we'll do the same thing when we work along and we do our stuffies. We're going to want it for that as well. So just keep in mind materials you're using, just so you know what's going to be your best stabilizer and how to best prepare those fabrics. So, all right. So there's my 15-minute long lecture on materials and stabilizer. I think we're ready to stitch now. So I have this ready to go. And the nice thing about the basting spray is it's holding. I don't know, but it's shifting. But like I said, if you don't like basting spray, that's fine. You don't have to use it. Just make sure it's secure. So use pins if you want to. Use the sew tights. You just want to make sure that material is not going to shift in your hoop. That's basically what it's doing. You could also hoop it. I just don't like hooping. I feel like I have a harder time getting things centered and lining things up because I'll get it perfectly centered. And then I put the top of the hoop on and I swear it shifts. So that's just me. This is the way that I do it. So I'm going to put this on my machine and I'm going to rotate everyone over so that we can stitch this up together. Oh my gosh. And so of course my machine powered off. So now it's like remove the frame, put the frame on, all that fun stuff. So bear with me while I get this lit up and then I'll switch the camera over here. And I really wanted to put this on a neutral color fabric, but all my fabric is also buried in boxes. So I had to dig in the scrap bin. And this is like the largest piece that I had. So that's what we're rocking today. All right, so I've got that ready to go. I'm gonna swing the camera over. So if you get seasick, if you have a sensitive stomach, please look away. I'm going to move it around. And please, any mess you see, I'm sorry. It's literally a disaster out here. I'm living out of boxes in my workspace and half the floor is torn up. So just fair warning, not a murder scene, just a horrible mess. So, all right, I'm going to move this now. And hopefully I'm not going to hang up or end this. I've done well so far. So still carpet over here. But on that wall here, I'll show you. Look at this mess. Do you see this? This is my life right now. Everything is torn up. It's so bad. And there's boxes and boxes and boxes. So everything I have to work with besides my vinyl is buried in boxes. All right. So there you go. And that was actually the better part of what was damaged. So we're in good shape there. So I wish, oh, good. I get to move it away a little bit. Also, I have paint all over my pants and my slippers. So please don't judge that either. It's a disaster. So Crystal, I have a 7x10 or 7x12 magnetic hoop. And I haven't tried it. It might be easier to center in that. I've used that hoop a couple times to say that I've used it because it's not my favorite because it takes forever with like eight pieces to put together to get it going. At least the kind of magnetic hoop I have. But I think with things like the, what's the big name one? The brand that has like the whole setup that you can put your shirt on, it holds the hoop and you put your shirt on and just snap it in place. I think those are probably super easy. I think Michelle of So Unique Designs has one. I've seen her use it. She's out of town right now, but those I think work. I just don't know. The ones they have, at least for domestic machines on that version, are pretty pricey. And I don't stitch enough shirts to get one, but they do look pretty cool. But I imagine that would be a lot easier to center on like that kind of system than a regular system. So, all right. So I am going to move my iPad over here so I can see comments. There's no taping tonight on anything, which is nice, and to deal with masking tape. So I do appreciate that. All right. Yeah, it's not a murder. It's not a murder scene. It's just a disaster over there, Nancy. All right. And then I have, my paint on my slippers, paint on my pants. It's been a day. All right. Dime. That's it. Yes. The dime hoops. Yeah, they do seem really nice. I just, like I said, I don't stitch enough on shirts and things to feel like I want to invest in that. So I haven't. All right. So I'm going to start with, it starts with the lower part of the rainbow. I kind of wanted my rainbow when I did this to not be like a perfect rainbow color and order. So that's why I know the rainbow is backwards. I know I want it to be a little bit different. Only have 4 colors in there anyway. So I'm going to start with hot pink on mine. And these colors may clash horribly with this fabric, but it is what it is. It might be cute when it's done. We'll see. All right, so I've got my pink going. Nancy, is your mic, does that like the dime hoop, does that have like the stand that puts with like the shirt and stuff? Or is it like one of the standard ones? There's a few different kinds and I can't keep them I can't keep them straight on like what's what. Oh, they're more difficult for the sweatshirts. That makes sense too. Like I said, I haven't they look cool, but it hasn't been on my radar because I looked at the system and it was like $700 or $800. I was like, oh, ouch, that's a lot of money for something that I don't stitch on enough of. I have, and I'll show you when we go back to the table. I've got a 7x12 magnetic one that's a brother one that came with my machine. That's one reason I have it. Um, so I wouldn't 7x12. So when you're stitching on sweatshirts and totes, I like to use the smallest size hoop for that design that I'm stitching on. I feel like it's easier because it's less to have to deal with excess being in the way, or like centering too much. I find it harder to say hoop a sweatshirt on a 6x10 frame if I'm stitching a 5x7 design. So the 7x12 is pretty large for that for me. So I think I've used it for a couple things, just to say that I've used it, but one that I have anyways is not for me. I'll show you when we get back over there. Okay, go check it on eBay. All right, almost done with the pink. And now we're on to the second one, which my brother machine reads colors weird. It's telling me that the next color is black, and I know it certainly is not black. I didn't put a black stripe in there. So I am going to go with blue, because why not? Sorry, my hand covered in paint. Oh, and my husband like picked out his colors for his side, like because our downstairs is split, so I have this big space over here, and there's like a wall and just a doorway, and he's got the other side, which is a smaller area just for his desk and his stuff. And I let him pick the colors for his side. So it's his side. Pick his color, right? He picked the ugliest colors, I swear to God. And I'm not saying anything because it's his space and he really likes it, but it's choices were made. I've got some right here on my arm of this. Can you see that? Of that like putrid, like, I don't know. It's like this, and it would be fine. I think I'd like this in a kitchen or something, but not like in an office space. This obnoxious, like marigold, pumpkin yellow. I don't know what that is. Um, and then he picked this like bluish gray. It looks like blue. And I don't know. And so it looks like it's that like pumpkin yellow with like a grayish sky blue. I don't know. He loves it. So that's all that matters. I ended up going with a like light teal from my side, which I think you might have seen when I spun the camera around. And I'm happy with that. We only got one wall so far because in order to get the rest of the walls in here, I need to take my workspace apart, and I'm not to the point to do that yet. So we got one long wall, but I've still got 1, 2, 3.5 walls left to do for mine. And I'm happy with my color, but I don't have to look at his walls all day. And luckily, the way that we painted it, because I did the gray going across, like there's one wall on the back side that extends into both spaces. So that kind of bluish gray is fine with my teal. But luckily, the way it is, I don't see it from the stairs when I'm at the top of the stairs. So you can't look downstairs and see a giant pumpkin orange in your face. So I'm happy about that. Yeah, I don't have a multi-needle. And the only reason I have a multi-needle is because I can't commit to picking more than one color in advance half the time. I'm very indecisive. So I just kind of muck along with my single needle flat bed. I do love my machine, but sometimes I do envy the ease of having that open at the bottom so you can get sweatshirts and things hooped easier without doing the hokey pokey to get them into your frame. All right, I'm gonna do. Oh, that's very bright, isn't it? I don't think I like that. Do purple. Like I said, my fabric being in those boxes over there and behind me really is messing with my vibe here. I'm limited on what I have to stitch on. Hopefully, fingers crossed that we can get this done. I doubt it's not going to be finished by this weekend, but hopefully in the next 2 weeks. Once the plumbers fix the issue permanently, we'll have them come in, um, get everything out, level the floor. So I'm optimistic that maybe 2 weekends from now it'll be done. But that's just me guessing. Hi, Tiara. Yeah, it's definitely more of a struggle to get the sweatshirts on the flatbed. It's much easier on a multi-needle. But again, I don't make a ton of them, so I kind of just suck it up and deal with it when I'm stitching. So it's not that frequent. But if you're making a lot of them, I can see getting super frustrated super quickly with a flatbed, doing a lot of garments and sweatshirts. Because it takes me several minutes just to hoop a sweatshirt properly and get it lined up. Oh, and like a lot of my shelving got ruined. Luckily, none of my materials did, but my shelving did. So I had to get all new shelving as well. So my fabric and stuff is residing in boxes until I get said shelving, which I'm not going to get until everything is done down here. So, and thankfully my testers are super awesome and are picking up a few extra tests to help me out with stuff. Because I got my vinyl out and somewhat organized, but that's all I have easily accessible is my vinyl. So anything else, I really can't run very easily. And I wish I would have thought about my colors before I did this because I feel like I'm going to have some serious clashing colors here. It's fine. Because that orange was intense with that, wasn't it? Ooh, this one's going to be a little better. See, this is why I can't have a multi-needle. I can't commit. I literally go bit by bit. All right, this is my top one. What about this one? No, that's ick. All right, that's not bad. I don't mind this orange. It's a little cooler orange. Still better than the color on his walls. Oh, and we're like tied up. Of course we are. There we are. All right, let me get this one in. Oh my gosh. There you go. Thank you. All right, last little arch there. Pierre, I'm just stitching our week 4 project, which is just a freestanding design. So nothing in particular, just on quilting cotton. I'll turn it into a wall hanging once I can unbury my supplies. My glue gun's buried too, so that's not very helpful. And all the garbage on my floor. It's Oh, and here's my official reminder. As you're here, the sale is ending tonight. So if there were some designs you wanted to pick up, make sure you grab them before the sale ends. So that way, say reminded everyone. So no one's mad at me tomorrow that they didn't get reminded. Don't love this background color, but we're going to make it work. Pierre, my whole space is in shambles because of all the flooding and everything. So I am just in boxes and corners, and half of it's torn up, half of it's not. And there's tiles on the floor that probably haven't seen a light since 1960. In fact, the guy that was here said they could possibly be asbestos tiles, which is great. But it doesn't matter because they're going to seal them under some concrete. So don't have to worry about that. I don't plan on ripping it up and doing all that to it. So we can just cover it up and pretend that it's fine. They said that was legal, so we're good. I wish I had picked out better colors. Okay, so I'm going to do gray. I might do 2 shades of gray. I might do that. So we got 3 lines of text. So I have a color stop set with all 3 lines. So you have the option to change to do 3 different colors if you want to. Oh, Pierre, I hope everything goes well. So speedy healing. All right, so we've got our stars now. I'm going to do mine in white, even though I feel like they might kind of like fade into this background, but we're going to go with that. Well, hopefully you heal quickly and it's not too much PT or anything, Piera. Oh, sorry, I hit the phone again. I'm bad at this. All right, yeah, I feel like this is going to fade into it, but again, oh, wait, no. I found kind of I don't know. I just saw a different color, I think. Again, this is why I can't have a multi-needle. Kind of like a brownie gold color. Let's see if that's gonna, see how this translates. And if I hate it, I hate it. Whatever. It's fine. All right, these are our little stars. Oh, anything that goes wrong with like water or plumbing is a nightmare, Robin. Actually, I don't want a multi-needle. I like my machines and I have a bigger frame. I have a bigger hoop size on mine than a lot of multi-needles have. So I can make bigger stuffies on mine. So I'm happy with it. And since I don't production make, like I can deal with a little of a hassle for hooping things like sweatshirts and stuff. But yeah, I didn't even consider one. Just kind of for me. And also considering I, make designs that for a lot of people that have single needles, I want to make sure that the designs that I make and that I have are accessible and that can be stitched in a single needle machine, if that makes sense. Just kind of your basic home domestic embroidery machine. And I don't even use, so my Juki over there, I don't even sew anymore half the time. I miss it, but I haven't had much of a chance to sew. I did sew something recently and I was super stoked about it. And I don't remember what it was. It wasn't all that exciting. It was like, yay, I sewed something. Don't remember what it was. Oh, it was pillows. I made pillows. So kind of boring, but yeah, you can't see the stars so much on the video, but I actually am happy with that color. That was a good choice. Because you can see it in person, but it's not like super in your face. All right, just 4 more little stars and then we'll get to the text. So this is the boring part. We just sit and wait. But as you can see here, I put that interfacing on the back of that, and we don't have any puckering around the satin, which is a pretty dense stitch. So we've got it nice and crisp. We don't have that puckering there. That's why we add the interface in the back of quilting cotton so that we get that crisp finish and we don't have puckers. That's a way to use it too, Nancy. I did use, yeah, I made the pillows, my Halloween pillows, which are still sitting down here. I didn't take them. My daughter wanted them and didn't take them when they're sitting down here. I guess I could take them upstairs for Halloween. I got paint, literally. I'm like peeling it off my skin. I need to hop in the shower after this and hope it all comes off. It's apparently in my hair too, but I blame my husband. So I might have like yellow and teal streaks in my hair. Tonight's project is just freestanding designs. So not like an actual in the hoop project, just how we stitch on different fabrics and different items. So this one is the try sucking less design that I went over in the beginning, which you'll see as it stitches out here in a second. So I'm on the try. So I think I'm going to do a gray, like this gray. And I have my whole studio space filled with like snarky things. So this will fit perfectly with the rest of my stuff in here because it makes me happy. All right, so we're on the try. And I think I'll do like a silvery gray for. And one thing I'll mention too is if you're stitching on white, just be mindful because sometimes when you've got really bright colors and you stitch white over it, sometimes some of those colors will pop through a little bit just because white isn't very, it's easier to see through white than other colors. So just keep that in mind too as you're stitching. You might have a couple areas that might peek through if you use a white, but I'm using just a gray, and we're fine. I don't have any peek through on that. But just something to mention. Yeah, the Hoop Master thing, I think is what I was looking at too, Angie. Like I was looking at it. It just was, if that's the one I'm thinking of, since I don't do a lot of stitching on garments, I don't think for me, I was like, oh, that's a pretty penny to stitch like maybe 5 or 6 sweatshirts a year. So that was for me anyways. But because if I was like production making, if I, sold things that I made and making a lot of those, I would absolutely probably invest in a multi-needle and one of those hooping systems. onto the R. All right, I don't hate these colors after all. I thought I might, but I'm actually okay with it. Sometimes I just have to trust the process. My brain knows it, but I don't believe it. Yeah, Angie, I've heard that. I mean, people love them, and like I think they're super, functional and great people that make them a lot. Like I think I probably would invest in it if that was something I did on a regular basis, because I think they're really effective and they'll probably cut down your time a lot. And again, I mention this every single live that I do. Probably sick of hearing it. I have my machine speed slowed down. I like to stitch around 400 stitches per minute. I get better stitch results, fewer, fewer broken threads. Um, and it's just less wear and tear on my machine because the slower it goes, the less heat it's creating, less friction. So, and again, that's for mine. Mine's just a domestic machine, not like a multi-needle that's meant to be stitching. Because some of those multi-needles, like they're more for industrial use. They can stand up to those speeds and the friction with that. So obviously that doesn't apply to you if that's what you're using. But for like just your kind of home-based single needle, you will get better results on a slower stitching speed. Yeah, I'm happy with the gray. All right. I did okay. Isn't bad considering I really was digging in the scrap bin for what fabric do I have that I can make work. Although I'm sitting here and I see a small little crawl space between totes under my cutting table that may lead to where I keep my wooden hoops. So I'm wondering if I like army crawl under those totes, see if I can find a wooden hoop or if I'm going to injure myself doing so. Because I think I see an opening. I might be able to get there. If I had one of my kids down, well, my oldest son, he's bigger than I am now, but I could my 10-year-old maybe. All right, I'm gonna make a break for it. If you hear me yell out in pain, it's because I pulled something. Actually, I'm gonna wait because this tee is almost done stitching. I'm gonna put the next one in, and then I'm gonna try for science to see if I can squeeze under the toes and climb around and find a wooden hoop. Wish me luck. Because at least I can show you how I hoop it and prep it to glue that down. Even though I can't glue it. All right, so I'm going to jump ahead. So I have it set into 3 steps here just so you can change your colors if you want to. So I have the try is one, sucking is one, and less is another one. Since I'm going to do the try and the less in the same color, you don't have to do it in the same color. Since I'm going to jump ahead and stitch that next just to save myself a thread change. And I am going to make a break for it to see if I can dig under here. And if I see a spider, I'm going to scream. That I can assure you. And I have my AirPods in, so you'll probably hear me like hurting myself as I climb under here. Let me see. Can I do it? Oh gosh. Okay. Is this the one? No. Is this the one? Oh, but I found some sweatshirts I could have stitched on. Oh, it's not that one. Pillow forms. Oh, I got it. I got it. Oh, that's tiny. Did I get it? Oh, I got it. Yes. Okay, that was fun. I got it. And I'm uninjured. I just made a big mess getting back here. Okay. All right. Back up. I have a hoop. Okay. You tried a riser for doing bags. Like in the hoop bags? I don't know if I know what that is. A riser. Oh, and I think I lied. I think I pulled my shoulder a little bit. Not bad. I'm just old. But I have a hoop. So I can at least show you how I start that. Okay. I don't think so, Krista. I bet you don't. No, I don't have that. I think I get the idea because on domestic sewing machines, they have like a free arm that you can slide that off so you can get it around. But I don't think I've seen this for embroidery machines. That's interesting. All right, I don't hate these colors after all. But I can't actually, I'll get it in the hoop to show you how I do it, do the wall hanging. But unfortunately, I wonder if I could do a fabric tack and then we could make it happen. Hot glue is better because it dries so quick. But I don't know what my hot glue gun is, but I do know what my fabric tack is. So we may try that and see how that goes. See, we're improvising. It's all going to work out. It's more than one way to do the same thing. Trying to debate, do I want to do white for the center lettering, or is that going to not stand out? I think it's going to stand out. And I'm sorry that you get to hear my stream of consciousness as we're on these lives, as I work through things by talking to myself and telling you what I'm thinking. So, and I'm sorry, I'm probably a little more chaotic than normal during my last couple weeks. Although maybe I'm not. Maybe I just am always as chaotic and I don't realize it. Either one is totally possible. I'll have to check them out. I don't know if it will work on my machine's really big. Really big, so I don't know that it would necessarily work on even my arm on my machine is well over a foot, but it's definitely something worth looking at. Thank you, Kimberly. Sometimes I feel like I'm just babbling on, and I'm hoping that I'm making sense. Especially as we sit here and just watch the machine stitch. When I take the camera back around, I'll show you where I army crawled to get the hoop and the chaos. So it's the other side of this workspace. All right, so now I got to go back up a step because I jumped to not change my thread. Now we're on that center line. I am going to do white. I don't want to do black. Black just seems very aggressive considering all the colors I've chosen so far. It just feels like it would be aggressive on this design. So trying for something a little more subtle. So let's see if I hate the white, I'll stop it and I'll stitch over to get a different color. Kimberly, I'm so proud of you. Although you probably costed me a little bit. That many stitches probably took a million years. I did one of my stuffies recently. I think it's my little chameleon one, which I adore. He's the cutest thing. I did him in 9x14, which I'll show you. He's like the cutest thing. Just my little chameleon. This guy in the 9x14 size was probably around that many stitches for that size. And it took me, it was like a 90-some minute stitch out on a speed that I have. He was worth it though. He's super cute. Most of my stuffies don't take that long to stitch out, but he did. He's got a lot of little details. Like he's got all these are fills. This is a fill. The little details in the eyes, all the little details on the fins, I don't know. Whatever you want to call that in the tail. So yeah, he's probably about that. And it took forever, but I love him and it's fine. Oh yeah, the bright pink would be good. Dang it. You know what? I like that. I'm going to pretend. I'm going to stop. Because the white is kind of just being camouflaged in there. So I'm going to go back and stitch over that white with that bright pink. That's a good call, Kimberly. I like that. And sometimes I do that. I'll start stitching something, especially in a light color. Typically you don't really see it if you start over on it. I wouldn't start over so much on fills because they're harder, but these satins are usually pretty forgiving to kind of start over. All right, so we're starting over. I like the pink better. Good choice. It's a dark pink though, Nancy. It's okay with the dark pink. It's not the light. The light pink is what it hates. But yes, my machine notoriously hates light pinks. I don't know why, but that's the one color it will always, if I'm gonna get a thread break and a thread nest, it's gonna be on a light pink every time. Yeah, I mean, you can see a teeny tiny bit of the white. I'll show you closer when we get over there, but you really don't notice that. If anything, it looks like maybe like what you would see if the bobbin pulled in a couple of spots, but it's not very noticeable, especially if you're just making for yourself. I'll zoom in when we get over there and show you what I'm talking about, because you can just go right over a lot of stitches to an extent. Like I said, I wouldn't go over a fill because that'll start getting really dense, but with satins and satin columns, which is like the long, kind of the wider stitch that you get, they're a little more forgiving because they're only getting 2 stitch points in on each side, like stitch, 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 once it does like the underlay part. So those typically don't get, even though they're more dense, they don't tend to get as, like the layers don't get as dense on them. Yeah. Which is why I can do satins, I can lay over other satins and we won't get needle breaks to a point. I can lay satins over fills and won't get needle breaks, but you don't want to put fills over fills. So that's when it starts getting dense. There's too many like points that the needle goes in. It just gets really messy, but satins usually you can stop and you can kind of go back over if you have to. Yeah, you can't even tell that I went over it and there was weight underneath it before. So don't be afraid if you hate the color of a text that you're stitching out to give it a try and go with a different color. I've done that many times. You can see a little bit right here. So this little pink right here, that was the Choco pen that I kind of just brushed off. So in real life, what I would do if it didn't brush off right away, I would take just some water and rub it off. A baby wipe works really well to get any residue off. And that's saying if I don't want to throw it in the wash, it'll come off in the wash. And this will all be hidden. Once I get it in the hoop, you won't see any of that. But because I've heard some people say that they put the Choco pens on or some chalk on fabrics and they can't get it off. But baby wipes, I don't have baby anymore, but I always keep baby wipes because they're great for things like that. And they could take up a surprising amount of stains. They're pretty handy. And I did check my bobbin before we started, I think, so I think we're good. Watch it run out on me here on the last letter. And all my animals are currently banned from the downstairs because of wet paint and torn up flooring and whatnot. So I don't have Gus down here harassing me tonight. I'll let the cats back down once the paint is fully dry. Almost there. We've been on for an hour, but the actual stitch out time on my slow speed is 32 minutes for this. It's not even a long stitch out, but I talk so much. That's why it's taking us so long. So if you're watching, realize it won't take you this long. After this, I am getting in the shower and I'm going to curl up with a good book. And try to scrub my paint off of me. Which I had much less paint on me until my husband got involved. And so I'm blaming him for my hands being painted, my arms being painted, and my hair being painted. Yeah, I was doing this and another design for this week, which I'm gonna release that design tomorrow, but it was kind of Halloween, but kind of not. And so I went with this one just in case someone doesn't want a ghost, which I get. Almost there. second to last letter. All right, last letter. And as you can see, we don't have any puckering around our letters. We're nice and crisp. Just what our goal was. Have a nice clean stitch out on the fabric that we chose. I do have more extensive videos on how I hoop sweatshirts and tote bags that I've done in previous scale builders and different lives. So like if you want a little more in-depth on hooping for the sweatshirts, hooping for the totes, I do have those up on my YouTube channel that you can check out, where I talk about how I center those, how I prep those, and how to get those in the hoop and get them onto the machine. But since I couldn't access my picture sweatshirts this week, we had to kind of just depend on how to talk about it. But if you do want to see that, they're up, they're there. I think I did them last year, maybe even earlier this year, so they're definitely there. And we are done. All right, so I can move my iPad over to the table. I can get this off my hoop. Again, I'm gonna try and get you over there without disconnecting. I've been doing well so far, but I didn't jinx it. So, all right, look away. I'm gonna maybe go ahead and pull this out and put the camera over there. So, and again, there's the giant mess, and then here's a giant mess over here, and here is where I crawled under, army crawl style, to get those hoops. So yeah, it's a little bit chaotic down here right now. All right, so let me put you back in, hopefully without, aha, I can slide this down a little bit. Look at that, we did it. All right, we're here. All right, let me pop this off my machine. So here we are. Oh, if I can get closer, Kimberly, there is where I stitched over the white. There's a couple spots, maybe like right up here at the top. If you're really looking, you can see a little tiny bit maybe around the edges, but it's not very noticeable unless you're like right up on top of it. So that's the pink. I stitched the entire S out in the white before I switched over the pink and ran over it. So you absolutely can do that. All right, so I'm gonna pop this out of the hoop. All right, let me get this hoop out of the way so we got some space to work. All right, so what I like to do, I have this hoop here, right? This is where it's going. I want to make sure that I have plenty of material. So I'm going to cut about 2 inches-ish around. If you want, you can just take it to the back and you can just draw a circle, but I'm going to trust myself to just kind of rough cut this here with maybe my dull rotary cutter. I know I'm cutting towards myself. I shouldn't be doing that. I just want to make sure I've got enough material here that I can wrap it around easily. All right. That out of the way. All right, so these little guys, and I'm just leaving, actually I will trim up. I'm going to trim up the stabilizer here a little bit just so it doesn't have too much bulk here. Where did my scissors go? Just so I don't have too much bulk wrapping it around. So just my cutaway, I'm just going to trim that up. And if you want to be super fancy, you can actually cut some felt to go to cover the back of the hoop, which again, my felt is also buried, so that's not happening tonight. But what you can do is you can cut a piece of felt if you want it to glue down on the back side that covers all those stitches. That way it's all hidden. I don't care if they're going up on my wall. I don't need to do that. But here's what we're working with. So, all right. So I'm going to lay this down. Try and find where you want that centered. Ish. Loosen your hoop up so you got plenty of room to work with here. I've got a cat hair on there. And a couple of jumps to trim too, but all right, so let's see. Here's where I am. I'm roughly centered here. Of course, my hoop isn't opened enough. And then I'm gonna flip it over and I'm gonna pull the back side to get that nice and tight. Make sure my frame is pushed down. Here's where I'm at now. It's a little loose up here, but that's because I need to tighten that. So pull that over and I'm gonna tighten this down. And they usually, this is a cheap old one I got on, I probably got a bulk pack on Amazon, but some of them have a little screw right there, a little that you can stick a screwdriver in and do this. Again, I'm gonna just quick pull it taut. Make sure it's nice and tight. Check it here. And as you can see, we have no puckering. We had no puckering before, but I don't hear you, but no puckering on the letters. It's nice and smooth. I'm sort of centered. It's fine. And then what I would do, I would tighten this probably more, but oh my gosh. It's getting a little difficult. All right, so normally what I would do is I would take a hot glue gun to finish this. But my hot glue gun is who knows where in one of those boxes. So we're going to see if we can make it work with fabric tack. The reason I like hot glue is because it adheres pretty quickly. So what I would do is I would take my hot glue gun, put a line here, fold this over, and I would continue around just folding this over, right? But I'm going to see if I can do it with fabric tack, which is also inherently more expensive. But I'm also going to get clips. I wouldn't have to do clips with hot glue because it's going to start curing pretty quickly. Fabric tack's going to take a little longer, but let's see if we can make this work, because why not? For science. All right, so I'm going to put a line in here. I'm going to work like a couple inches at a time, and then I'm going to fold this over into the fabric tack. So hot glue would start curing right away. This is not. So I'm going to actually take a clip, hold that down. If I had hot glue, I would not need to clip this. A couple inches at a time. Same thing, fold this over. These clips are probably going to pop off and get me in the eyeball. Oh, it's already popping off. I know. I'm sorry, I don't have the hot glue. I wonder if I have my bigger clips. Oops. Will these go a little wider? Yeah. go. So again, I'm just doing a couple inches at a time. Fold it in taut, push it down. It's going to be puckery in the back, and that's okay. But see, we're just going to continue all the way around like this. This is going to take, like I said, a lot longer than if I had a glue gun, because I have to stop and clip. But I would still just work in sections with a glue gun as well. Pull it in, fold it over. Clip. Don't use a hot glue gun for a lot of things, but the things that it's used for, it's invaluable for. Especially this fabric tack just gets all stringy too, and it gets on my nerves. I feel like I got strings and whiskers of fabric tack around. All right, a third of the way done. In, push it over. Again, little trails of fabric tack around. Almost there. Halfway done. There's a way that you can like stitch these down too, but I am not doing all of that. And this works just fine. And like I said, if you really wanted to, you could cut some felt that's a little tiny bit smaller than your hoop. Just trace it and lay it down on the back side and glue it down. And then you won't see any of those stitches. Clips are fighting for their lives here. Almost there. And I'll leave these clips on overnight too on this one. With hot glue, like I said, it's pretty instantaneous, which is nice, and it's satisfying where you're doing a project and you can just knock it out and then it's like done and usable right away. But fabric tack is a great little product for things, but it is not instantaneous, that's for sure. I'm gonna flip there because you want to keep pulling up there. It's so thick, like takes a minute to get down to the nozzle. There we go. We're almost at the very end here. See the glue where I started? Strings of fabric tack. All right. All right. I'm going to add a couple more clips in a couple spots. Let's see. There we are. So pretend the clips aren't there, but now we have a cute little wall hanging. I'll cut those jump stitches later. But that's it. We have it nice. We have no puckering. We're nice and even. And this is just basic quilting cotton. So nothing even heavy duty. Really that non-woven is what really works out to help give you a little more stability to your fabric beyond your stabilizer and your hoop to make it nice and crisp. Kimberly, I'll probably take it out in the morning. I feel like overnight's probably fine. I know when I use fabric tack on the bottom of my stuffies to seal them. And honestly, I can take the clips off generally in a little over an hour. So if you want to be super sure, you can leave it on for 24, but I think overnight's more than enough and it should be nice and secure. But if it's hot glue, you're great. You don't have to use clips or anything because it'll start curing right away. So I would recommend hot glue for this one if you've got it, but Fabric Check will work in a pinch. Now we know. Like when your basement floods and all your stuff's in boxes. Oh yeah, see Nancy, you can totally do that too. If you wanted to like trim it over and just put felt down, that works too. This is just my little way. And I'll probably, once this is done drying, I'll probably trim these up a little bit. Just these pieces where I cut a little longer, because I just did a rough cut. I'll probably trim those up too. That way it'll lay nice and flat on the wall. So like on this one, this was hot glue. On this one, you can see I don't have as much excess here because the hot glue is just better for it. It really lays it down and tacks it inside there, even when I was a little uneven there. Versus this, I have a little more bulk here, which I'm going to clip right there too. You see that? Let's clip you there. All right. But yeah, so that's it. So you can make cute little wall hangings if you don't know what to do with some of your designs and you don't want to do towels, you don't want to do totes, you want something kind of quick and easy. These are nice and quick and easy and they make great gifts. They're nice to hang up on your walls too, so that add a little pop of something to your walls, especially if you got little crafting area and you want something fun. That's what I like to do with these. Like I said, I have a few I have hanging around. And I do like, this is this 4x4? No, it's not 4x4. It's 5x5. But yeah, even the smaller ones are super cute too. So I don't know what size hoop this is. Let's see if I can pretend to. So looks to be about 11 inches roughly for the hoop size, maybe 10 inches. And this is a 5x7 design. So I like the sizing of this. I could probably go up to a 6x10 and be happy with it. But this is just a 5x7, but a 4x4 would be cute in these smaller hoops too. This is a 6-inch hoop. So, and I didn't pay attention to where that falls. I probably should have, but it's fine. It's just for me, no big deal. But yeah, that's it. So hopefully that was helpful. And you learned something about different materials and stabilizers and all that fun stuff. And how to not get puckers when you're stitching on this stuff. Because I feel like that's something that people often struggle the most with, is how do I get these puckers out? And it really comes down to how you prepare your fabrics before you even stitch. So people could say, add more stabilizer, you know, hoop your fabric, soft fine well, and that very well could work too, but this does work as well. So this is my kind of tried and true method to make sure that we don't get puckers and we get a nice clean finish on anything freestanding. So next week we have patches. I can't imagine that we're going to be into the flooring by next week. I really don't think it's going to happen. So I'm pretty positive we'll be here full steam ahead for patches next week. Which I love doing patches, but it's a long stitch out. So bring snacks, because stitch outs are generally about an hour for a patch, just for the stitch out. You're gonna want, I like to use Badge Master Stabilizer. If you haven't gotten that, you can grab that. Alternatively, you could even use, some people use that poly mesh I was talking about, and they do a few layers of this in the hoop. But you don't want to use, I don't like using cutaway because it's really hard to get that where you can get nice and clean on your patches. So this is Badge Master. And if you see here, my satins are nice and clean. I don't have any edges here. It's not rough. We get a nice finish on this, even with my jump stitch I didn't cut. But this is that, I need to rip this off the back still, but this is Badge Master. It's the clear. If not, use that poly mesh or some type of like heavy duty water soluble stabilizer. Some people can use tearaway if you're super careful, but I don't recommend that either. It can be difficult. But yeah, we'll go over all that next week just to give you a heads up on what we're doing. So everyone have a fab week, and I will see you, fingers crossed, things are still going for Sunday. I imagine they will be. So that's all, everyone. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.